शारदचन्द्रसुन्दरमुखम् ताम्रारविन्देक्षणम् भक्ताभीष्टवराभयप्रदकरम् कौपीनमात्रोज्ज्वलम् स्वात्मानन्दरसानुभूतिविवशम् सर्वानवद्याङ्गकम् श्रीमन्तं श्रीरमणीश्वरं गुरुवरं योगासनाध्यासितं ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् ध्यायेत् श्रीरमणीश्वरम् हृदयकुहरमध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहमहमिति साक्षादात्मरूपेण भाति हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वत मज्जतव पवनचलनरोधात् आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namo Ramana. In this Tuesday Atma Vichara session from Ramanacentre for Learning, Bengaluru, we have been reading Bhagavan's Upadesham from the book Years in the Presence of Ramana, My Master, written by Mahakrishna Swami. And we have been meditating on Bhagavan's teaching from the book as it has been contemplated in the book. And then doing the Atma Vichara session, practice of Atma Vichara for 20 minutes. Following that, our President, Dr. Sarada Akka, would be talking about Ramana Gita and contemplating on self-enquiry as it has been contemplated in Ramana Gita, where there are questions put by Ganapati Muni's devotees and other devotees to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan's answers to those questions have been captured and compiled in the form of a Gita by Ganapati Muni. Then finally we will have the concluding prayers to Bhagavan. In the study that we have been doing from Years in the Presence of Ramana, My Master, the first chapter which we have been looking into, which is titled Ramana, My Master, Mahakrishna Swami goes on to say, when someone calls us and asks for us, we all have the tendency to say I. And in saying I, we automatically point to our chest. This is a spontaneous, natural form to point to where the consciousness of being is reflected. I repeat this. We automatically point to our chest. This is a spontaneous, natural form to point to where the consciousness of being is reflected. Because of this, Sri Ramana advises to feel the right side of the chest, but without definitions, without thinking. This has been highlighted by A.R. Natarajanji. Because of this, Sri Ramana advises to feel the right side of the chest, but without definitions, without thinking. The whole technique of self-knowledge indicated by him consists of this. As it always happens, the most important things are the most simple. The difficult thing is to put the teaching to practice. And it is difficult because man is complicated. It is not that truth is complicated, too confused or abstract to be perceived, but it is because the thinking mind in each man is what induces him to imagine so and so, to imagine so, and to be enslaved by temporary manifestation. I repeat here, it is not that truth is complicated or too confused or abstract to be perceived, but it is because the thinking mind in each man is what induces him to imagine so, be enslaved by temporary manifestation. For many, it may appear strange that only through this technique, in a certain way simple, can it be possible to find a solution for the fundamental problems of life. For many, it may appear strange that only through this technique, in a certain way simple, can it be possible to find a solution for the fundamental problems of life. In this paragraph, Mahakrishna Swamiji goes on to make it very clear how simple is the truth and how complicated is our mind. And the gap that is created, because he goes on to say that the thinking mind induces, makes us imagine whatever is temporarily appearing to be real. Very important for us to note. In fact, we think that we are so enslaved to this approach that whatever is temporarily manifesting, that is the truth, which is what our thinking mind makes us get induced into or enslave us into. It is so what to say, we are so used to it that even when we want to perceive the simplest things of life, it is very difficult for us to perceive. Like we may perceive the wave, we may not perceive the water. We may perceive the pot, but we may not perceive the things that make it possible. Like that, our thinking mind makes us get so engrossed or so enslaved to what is manifested. It may be a temporary manifestation, but we get so engrossed with it, which is something that we need to understand. And we also need to understand that he's saying when somebody calls us, we are so automatic in pointing. We have the tendency to say I and point to ourselves. That is also quite natural and simple. That is available to us. But that is not what we take it for granted. That's not what we think is I. When somebody puts a question, who am I don't see myself and say, here is this body, or here's my different experiences. I feel my presence inside this body, but when I see a dead body, I know that that presence is absent in it. I don't even take that as a lead to see that I am the very presence itself. I am the very conscious of that presence itself. I am that I am, as Bhagavan says. I don't see that. Whenever the question, who am I, is asked, we use the thinking mind, and since we are enslaved by the thinking mind to imagine something, to temporarily manifest something, so we immediately try to look for something that's like a bright light or some great experience out of the body experience, or something that we have not experienced it at all. And we don't even understand if such an experience were to happen, how can it be truth? Because anything which comes and goes away, which is not experienced even now, that cannot be the truth at all. So the truth had to be there even when I knew it or when I did not knew it. It was the simplest truth that should have been available to me. But that is not the way our thinking mind, even when approaching the inquiry, who am I, makes us take it. Even when sitting with our eyes closed, we are constantly the thinking mind, we are enslaved by the thinking mind again and again, and that thinking mind indirectly takes us looking for some sort of a temporary thing that would appear, so that will make us feel that we have seen the self or experienced the self. And we may have to again inquire, to whom is this, who am I, to bring back to that simple truth, to that simple presence, to that simple consciousness, which enables all of this to be seen, the thinking mind, the enslaving, and the looking out for the temporary manifestation. We can see to whom is this all, who is aware of all of this, then the answer would always be that there is some simple entity, simple presence, and a simple consciousness that we are, to whom all of these temporary things are appearing and disappearing. And even if that truth is available even before the appearance, during the appearance, and in the vanishing of the appearance, we don't take that simple presence as our experience, as ourself. We want some strange experience to manifest because of the thinking mind. This is very beautifully brought out to us by Mahakrishna Swamiji, that the truth is so simple. Whenever somebody calls me, I say I, and it is so simply available. I am very consciously aware of myself, and I don't take it for, I don't believe that is my own realization. I think that my realization has to be some sort of a definition that I can give, some sort of a thinking that I need to do to recognize it, something like an object. So here it is very beautifully put together, where we are getting again and again disoriented from recognizing the simplest truth, which is my own presence, which is my own awareness of my own presence. And it is so natural and so simple. And therefore, self-realization is the most simple thing. So what is that we need to do? So what is the sadhana that we need to do then? It is only our again and again getting lost with this thinking mind. Again and again thinking, getting attached to the thinking mind. And in that process, getting enslaved to all the temporary manifestations, all the temporary imaginations. That alone we need to let go. And that is exactly what self-enquiry does. Bhagavan, whenever we get enslaved by a thought, enslaved by some imagination, temporary imagination, Bhagavan very beautifully asks us to inquire, to whom is this? Who am I? And in doing so, he brings the attention, or he makes us not getting enslaved with that temporary thing, and make us recognize that light through which all of this was visible to us, to that ever-present truth for whom all of this are appearing and disappearing. What a beautiful way. And that is the real self-abidance. If we move our attention away from the non-self, what remains is only the self. And that is the real self-abidance. And that is what self-enquiry does. Therefore, the path of self-enquiry is basically the goal that we need to reach. And by constantly practicing this truth, this truth becomes known to us. It becomes a reality for us. Therefore, Bhagavan is asking us to hold on to this self-enquiry diligently, and in continuous practice of that self-enquiry, it becomes very, very clear that the truth alone is. And all these temporary manifestations and the mind attention or enslaving it to us is the whole ignorance that we need to let go. And if we let go of it, either through effort by inquiry or by clear recognition, either which way, that we experience nothing but the truth and truth alone here and now. This is the fundamental teaching Bhagavan, and this is the solution also for all the problems, because all other problems is only an imagination. In that truth, in that presence, in that awareness, there is no change. And therefore there is no problem. There is no second thing at all. But in the manifested, in the temporary, and in the imagined, there could be anything that could appear as the problem. And therefore, for a thinking mind, for a person who is attached to the thinking mind, this simple truth appears, how can it solve all my problem? But by going to that space, to that truth where there is no problem at all, there only we transcend everything and remain in that pristine truth as that truth itself, says Mahakrishna Swami in this paragraph. With Bhagavan's abundant grace, with which alone we have come to this most direct path, for the next 20 minutes, no matter how many thoughts come, whatever may be the nature of those thoughts, whether it is a good thought, bad thought, a spiritual thought, it is all of the mind, thinking mind, to some temporary manifestation. But to whom are these things appearing is a very important inquiry. Therefore, to whom is this makes us recognize that unchanging truth, to whom all of these temporary things are appearing and disappearing. So therefore, no matter what is the nature of those thoughts, the inquiry, to whom is this, who am I, is very much the attention that needs to be diligently done to get back to the ever-present I, that simple truth which alone is. With Bhagavan's abundant grace, for the next 20 minutes, let us practice Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifest as Ramana, we in this part of the satsang are meditating on the verses of Ramana Gita, a compilation by Ganapati Muni of answers given by Bhagavan to various seekers of truth, covering doubts of the whole gamut of spiritual seeking. These have been compiled into 18 chapters by Ganapati Muni, and we are now meditating. We had finished meditating on chapter 13, which was Sannyaso Three Purushayos Tulyadhikara Nirupanam. The adhikara or the right of ladies or the eligibility of ladies being equal to men for taking sannyasa. That was the previous chapter, and Bhagavan had said that there is no difference between men and women in self-abidance, and self-abidance alone is sannyasa. This he had described even earlier. He had said emphatically sannyaso nirmalam jnanam in the earlier chapter on ashrama vichara, which is the 8th chapter. So here Bhagavan says there is no difference, and also we found a historical significance to the 13th chapter, because Bhagavan says in the 13th chapter, in answer to a question by Vishalakshi, Ganapati Muni's wife, that the body of a woman Jivan Mukta should not be cremated, and if it is cremated, great negative impact will be there because of that. That is how Tayumanavar Tirumular describes in his treatise Tirumandiram, where it is clearly given as to how a samadhi of a Jivan Mukta should be made. So there will be great harm to the entire nation and to the entire spaces and people connected with the cremation of a Jivan Mukta's body, says Bhagavan. This shows us the glory of Jivan Mukti. That even though the Jivan Mukta is not the body at any point of time, and the Jivan Mukta is a Jivan Mukta precisely because of the awareness that he or she is not the body, nonetheless, that body becomes sacred. As Humphrey says, God was radiating terrifically from that corpse, he says. Bhagavan's body was like a corpse. He says, Jada, absolutely Jada, like a corpse. But God was radiating terrifically from that body. So we can see the radiation of God over there. So that deho hi suralaya. Now, is not every body a suralaya? Is not your body, my body, and X, Y, Z, everyone's body a suralaya? Isn't every body the abode of the divine? It is. But unless it is experienced as such, it does not become potently manifest. However, in the case of a Jivan Mukta, the presence of the divinity within the body also becomes very evident and manifest. So we could feel all the devotees of Bhagavan and the seekers of truth. So many instances are there when people would say, I will not prostrate to Bhagavan, but when they come in front of him, they will just fall flat. Or they will come with questions and everything will be dissolved when they come into his presence. So that is the glory of Jivan Mukti. Now, why should we be introduced in the path, in the spiritual path, to the glory of Jivan Mukti? Because that is our goal. Jivan Mukti is the goal. Unless we understand the glory of the goal, the magnitude of the goal, the value of the goal, our seeking will not be intense enough. The more we recognize the beauty and the worth of the state of Jivan Mukti, the more we will be keen on getting back to the state of Jivan Mukti, which is our natural state. So it is just as Bhagavan says that happiness is our true nature, and knowing this is a great support to our self-enquiry. Similarly, the awareness of the greatness of a Jivan Mukta is a great support and an aid for self-enquiry. When we see how full in itself is the state of Jivan Mukti, our dependence on objects will come down. Our readiness to inquire into the nature of the self, rather than be engaged with objects, that readiness will increase. So we are told the beauty of that state. We are given descriptions of the beauty of that state by Bhagavan, not only in the 13th chapter where he says that the body of a Jivan Mukta is divine, but again in the 14th chapter, which is completely dedicated to the topic of Jivan Mukti. Jivan Mukta Lakshanam is the 14th chapter. Nishayam ekavimshekni Bharadvajo Vidambarah Prajna Shiva Kulopadhir Vaidarbho Vadatam Varaha. Vaidarbha is the questioner in this chapter. He belongs to Shivakula, says the Muni. Prajna, he is already a man of great knowledge, and he is of the Bharadwaja Gotram. Bharadwajo Vidambaraha Nishayam Ekavimshegni. So on the 21st of August. This is all happening in August, in the Chaturmasya, July and August. So Nishayam, in the night, he is questioning. But Muni, we found that Muni had praised Vishalakshi. Here we find Muni is praising Vaidarbha also. So it is a manner in which Muni introduces the questioner, talking about the stature of the questioner to make us understand the significance of the question itself. So, what did Vaidarbha ask Bhagavan about? Jivan Muktim Samuddishya Maharshim Pariprishtavan. He is not delineating the question, but he says Bhagavan was asked, in a way, said Jivan Muktim Samuddishya Maharshim Pariprishtavan. The actual question is not being posed here, but it is about Jivan Mukti. He probably want to know what is Jivan Mukti, what are the kinds of liberation. This we can understand from Bhagavan's answers. Atha sarveshu shrunvatsu maharshir vakyam abravit. Having listened to all his questions, Bhagavan answered thus. So he says, Shastri laukikaischapi pratyayeira vichalita swarupe sudridha nishtha jivan muktirudahruta. Shastriye laukikaischapi. Okay. Pratyayehi. Bhagavan says, without any attachment or wavering or movement towards anything that is worldly, laukikai, but he begins with shastriye. No attachment either to Shastra or to the world. Pratyaye, the avichalita, without any movement towards any object, which may be even scriptural or worldly. Because vasanas are said to be of three kinds: Deha Vasana, Loka Vasana, and Shastra Vasana. So there are three kinds of tendencies. Shastra Vasana is the tendency of knowing something. I know it already. It is not necessarily the study of Vedas or any other scriptures. One is the need to know and knowing something already and dependence on what is already existing as my store of memory or knowledge. That is my own Shastra. So our attachment to the Shastra and movement towards Shastra. Of course, there are some people who would like to study the Shastra itself. Here, Bhagavan has given the story of Roma Maharshi. Roma Maharshi is said to be a Maharshi who had the blessing that if all the hair on his head fell away, then only he would end his life. And he had plenty of hair on his head. It was not as if his hair was falling. It was hundreds and thousands of years also the hair was on his head. So he had a long life. He was gifted with a very, very long life. And he got a desire that he must study and master the Vedas. Because I have a long life, I could study and master the Vedas. But he could see that his lifespan is coming to an end. And he had not even finished studying one Veda, let alone the four Vedas. So he prayed to God, please give me an equal extension of my life. So double my life. That happened. Then again he had not finished, even that one Veda had not got completed. Then again he asked for one more extension. This was the third extension of life. That was also given, and that was also coming to a close. And when it was nearing a close, he just made a plan. Okay, I think I need more time. And he would have probably asked for the extension the next morning. But in the meantime, God gave him a dream. And after that dream, waking up from that dream, Roma Maharshi understood that he should not be spending any more time in the pursuit of the scriptures. What was that dream? That dream was that there were 4 huge mountains of sugar. Huge mountains of sugar. And there was a very, very big, monstrous ant, kind of an ant, very huge ant. But what was this ant doing? This ant was taking sugar from one of the mountains, carrying it and putting it into its home or near its home. It was going on scurrying from here to there and there to here and here to there, running from its home, coming to the mountain, picking up sugar granules, putting them near its house or inside its house. That is all it was doing. And for such a long time this was happening. Nothing else was happening. When Roma Maharshi woke up from the dream, he understood that he is like that ant. He is going on gathering information. What is there in the Vedas, he is taking it, carrying it and putting it into his own house, which is his own head, into his own mind, into his own intellect, into his own memory. But what is he not doing? He is not tasting the sugar. What is the purpose of the sugar if it is not tasted? So Bhagavan says that our mind must not move towards Shastra. The way the mind moved towards Shastra could be very subtle. So anywhere, any thought that we have is representative of any one of these vasanas. Either we will be worried about the world, who is going to say what about us, or we want to give something to someone in the world. So we are worried about the world. So Bhagavan says, Laukikaischapi, Shastriyair Laukikaischapi, Pratyayer Avichalita, no chalana, no movement. When that is not there, Swarupe Sudhrida Nishtha, and being firmly established in one's own true nature, Jivan Mukti Rudahrita. That is called Jivan Mukti. The definition of Jivan Mukti is without the least interest in anything which Bhagavan has described in two ways, Shastra and Loka, the mind and the senses, the possessions and the capacity to know, the intellect, the arts, learning, all this. So Shastra and Loka. Bhagavan has said, with no movement towards any of these, when one is established firmly in the self, that is called Jivan Mukti. When nothing matters anymore to us, when there is no need, when the mind does not find any need to move towards any object, but is turned back only to the self and is blissful in its own truth, that is Jivan Mukti. But it has to be firm, Sudrudha, Bhagavan says. And Muktireka vidaiva syat prajnanasya visheshata sharirastham muktabandham jivan muktam prachakshate. Bhagavan says that it is only of one kind. People think that there are many kinds of mukti, videga mukti. Even in Ulladhanarpadu, Bhagavan will later give this point that Rupinya Rupin Yubhayatmika cha Muktistri Rupeti Vido Vadanti. People say mukti is of three kinds, with form, without form, with and without form. But what are these? These are all varied only until the I thought is arising. Otherwise, no difference is there. So here also Bhagavan says there is no difference in the state of awareness. Mukti reka virevasya prajnanasya visheshata. By the nature of the vishesha prajnana, that consciousness. Sharirastham mukta bandham jivan muktam prachakshate. If one is liberated while in the body, then it is called Jivan Mukti. Actually, Mukti, whatever you call it, different types of Mukti are there. And Bhagavan will also delineate what the different types of Mukti are in the further verses of the chapter. But here he is saying there is really no difference. But if you say that somebody has become liberated while in the body, then that person is called Jivan Mukta. And our goal is to become Jivan Muktas by the great grace of Bhagavan, which is unfailingly taking us back to the self, to abide there and to remain as Jivan Muktas. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri
Namo Ramana. Apavasachit Sukhavarirashi Yasyormimatram Bhuvanam Samastam Guhahitam Tam Ramanam Gabiram Chinta Vihinam हृदि चिन्तयामि चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. Namo Ramana. Thank you all.